Hey everybody, and welcome to the Friday wrap-up on Streamline Solopreneur, a short episode where I cover 4 things: what's on my mind this week, recommended reading, something fun, and something to help your systems. This is the show that helps solo business owners go from doing everything themselves to saving 25 hours per month without over-reliance on AI or hiring a team. Hopefully this week's curation gets you thinking about your own systems before you close the laptop for the weekend. I'm your host, Joe Casabona, and here's what's on my mind for August 28th, 2026. Okay, number 1, writing with AI is not the same as using a calculator for math. Financier Stanley Druckenmiller is in hot water this week for using AI to write his criticism of Scott Bessent. And he said when facing this criticism that he's not embarrassed because using AI to write is akin to using a calculator when I do math problems. I've seen this more than once over the past couple of weeks, and I've even referred to large language models as word calculators. But maybe I should stop, because when you say writing with AI is like using a calculator for math shows a deep misunderstanding of math, calculators, and words. There are stark differences. For example, you still need to know the calculation you are trying to solve. You can't just shout solve for X into a calculator without more information. And maybe you're thinking, okay, well, I know I want to criticize Scott Bessent. Maybe I even know I want to criticize him for inflation or tariffs or whatever, right? Write me an article that does that. But here's the other side of that argument. Each math problem yields one result, one answer. As my computer science teacher back in college, Dr. McCloskey, often said, the beauty of math is that it is not ambiguous. You have a math problem, an equation, and it will yield one answer and the same answer over and over again. If you ask a large language model to criticize Scott Bessent, you'll get vastly different answers between large language models, prompts, or even attempts. Claude will not output the same article twice. If you give it a prompt of, I need an article that criticizes Scott Bessent on inflation, you will get different articles every time. You can use any calculator in the entire world, any working calculator, I guess I'll say, to solve 5 times 5. You will get 25 every single time. If you're using a more advanced, a scientific calculator, and you say solve for 10 equals x over 2, you'll get 20 every single time. But that's not even my biggest gripe with this analogy. My biggest gripe with this analogy is that it is extremely troubling when people use calculators for basic math. I recently paid for takeout with cash at a restaurant. The total was $47.46, and I handed the cashier $48. She had no intention of giving me my change, and I looked at her, and she said, "Do you want the change? It's just a few cents." I said, "It's like 50 cents. And she brought me 2 quarters. And I'm confident that she brought me 2 quarters because she didn't actually know that the true change was 54 cents, and I just said like 50 cents. She did not know the amount of change I was supposed to get. This is something I see constantly. I was at an airport one time, and the guy who was ordering in front of me, his total came to $10.19. He hands the cashier a 20 and then says, "Oh, I just found a quarter." So the cashier says, "How much change are you supposed to get back?" And the patron said, "I don't know." I was like, "Guys, it's 6 cents. 6 cents. 25 minus 19. It is extremely troubling. That's bad. Everybody should be able to do basic math in their head. But not being able to articulate your own thoughts without assistance from AI, that is so much worse. Especially if, like, Stanley Druckenmiller, you are a billionaire financier. But you don't need to be a billionaire to be able to state your thoughts. I'm not saying you need to do it cleanly or clearly the first time, but you should be able to articulate your own opinions without asking AI. Do you have something on your mind? Let me know. What do you think about my screed just now? You can head over to streamlinedfeedback.com, write in, or leave a voice note. If you leave a voice note, I might even play it on the show. All right, let's get to recommended reading. This week, the recommended reading is The Unraveling of Podcaster Ashley Flowers' True Crime Empire. This is from journalist Ashley Carmen for Bloomberg, and I'm really not much of a true crime podcast listener anymore. I enjoyed the first couple of seasons of Serial. I used to listen to Criminal by Phoebe Judge and Dr. Death, plus some limited run shows. Those were interesting to me, but it's been a while. I realized that listening to too much true crime actually had like an adverse effect on the way I was thinking about stuff. And to my knowledge, I haven't listened to any of Audio Chuck's shows. Audio Chuck is the company that Ashley Flowers owns. The most interesting bit of this story for me is not necessarily about Crime Junkies or Audio Chuck. It actually came towards the beginning of the story for me. And I'm going to read this verbatim from the article. A growing number of top performers, from Call Her Daddy's Alex Cooper to Jimmy Donaldson, aka Mr. Beast, are attempting to parlay their internet clout into broader, more diversified companies. But such transitions can be difficult. To pull it off, the already harried hosts typically have to take on expansive new leadership duties while continuing to star on podcasts or YouTube channels with intensely demanding schedules. Often it amounts to a frantic juggling act for even the most industrious hustlers. End quote. I see a lot of parallels between the personalities described here and solopreneurs. When you try to build an empire based on you, you're going to hit up against some limitation. Time, most likely, money, the resources that you have at your disposal, appeal, something like that. You try to grow beyond yourself. You cannot do it by yourself. I knew when I made the decision to stay a company of one that I wasn't going to build an empire or generate massive generational wealth. But I did know that I could make more than enough money to support my family and spend time with my kids. I think the framing of this story is also interesting to me as a dad who has made very different decisions from a lot of business owners. Ashley Flowers admitted that she killed a popular show to spend more time with her young daughter. But later in the article, it quotes her as saying this, quote, "No one at this company works more hours than I do. Yes, I am the founder, but that is not why. It's because I care so much about this company and the work we do. I regularly set my alarm at 2 or 3 a.m. and work over the weekend, holidays, and when I'm sick." That statement feels diametrically opposed to the idea that you are ending something to spend more time with your daughter. Unless you're saying, I set my alarm at 2 or 3 a.m. so I can work from 3 to 7 before she wakes up. But I don't think that's the implication here, because she's also saying she works weekends, holidays, when she's sick. I think two things can be true. You can care about the company you've built while also not doing everything yourself. The story routinely states how things that she tried delegating out, she took back over and micromanaged. And this is a parable for us as solo operators as well. How many times have you said, no one can do what I can do? Increasingly automated systems can take a lot off of our plate. And if our goal really is time freedom, preventing burnout, spending more time with our daughters, well, we should let those automated systems take things off of our plate. I'm not saying you need to hire. I don't want to hire any full-time employees. I have a VA and a couple of other contractors to do things that I literally don't know, can't do well. I don't have any employees, and I never intend on having employees. But that doesn't mean you can't take things off of your plate. You can and you should. So I think that article is really interesting. All right, let's move over to something fun. The something fun this week is one of my favorite YouTube channels, Epic Rap Battles of History, or ERB, has a new video out, Tom Cruise versus Evel Knievel. I love epic rap battles of history. I think they are clever, well-researched, and catchy. My wife, when she was pregnant with our oldest, was worried that our daughter would be born knowing some of these epic rap battles of history because I listened to them so much. But I also appreciate that the guys took a step back from doing videos every 2 weeks to prevent burnout from them and their team. It's kind of like the opposite of what you see in the Crime Junkie story. They were doing too much in too little of amount of time, and they took a step back. And even though they went from publishing fortnightly to every few months now, I greatly look forward to new ones. This one, Tom Cruise versus Evel Knievel, is just as funny as and clever as their previous work. Plus, the guy they hired to play Tom Cruise is incredible. At first, I thought it was one of the guys, Nice Peter. Then I realized it wasn't. Then I thought, is that actually Tom Cruise? But obviously, it was not. So the guy that they hired to play Tom Cruise is incredible. I think his handle on Instagram is @NotTomCruise. So check him out. Really good. Love their body of work. This is a really good one, and I strongly recommend the channel in general. Okay, moving on to something to help your systems. I'm going to talk about the Stream Deck today. And yes, I mean, I talk about the Stream Deck a lot, usually when I'm talking about my systems, right? But over the past few weeks, I showed off my mad Stream Deck skills. Sorry, I'm not 20 anymore. On calls and recordings, and folks were really impressed by it. The ability for me to seamlessly switch or add things or move between cameras. And while I've written about my Stream Decks several times, it's always worth resurfacing. So in the description, in the show notes for this, you'll find a link to how I've configured my Stream Deck. But if you're looking for a place to start, I'll put this video in the cards on YouTube. I've made a video about what your first 6 Stream Deck buttons should be. And I think that is a really good starting point if you are unsure, if you want to use the Stream Deck. Because I got to tell you, keyboard shortcuts are great, but having a button with a label or an icon is much, much easier, in my opinion. And it's how I run this whole show. So if you're looking for a great piece of hardware, maybe there's going to be a Labor Day sale as this episode comes out. It is a week from Labor Day here in the United States. The Stream Deck is a great purchase, in my opinion. But that's it for this episode of the Friday Wrap-Up from Streamline Solopreneur. These episodes are about taking more time off, especially on the weekends. And the best way to do that is by having good systems in place, good solo ops. If you join my newsletter, you will get weekly emails on top of these emails that go out for the Friday Wrap-Up. You'll get weekly emails on how to build systems that will save you 25 hours per month without over-reliance on AI or hiring a team. You'll go from doing everything yourself to doing your most important work. So you can sign up over at streamlined.fm/join. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, I hope you find some space in your week.